Hey there, welcome back to our YouTube channel. In this video, we're going to build a quotes app using React. This app will allow us to fetch random quotes from an API, display them on the screen, and even save our favorite quotes in the favorite section. Before we dive in, make sure to hit the like button if you find this video helpful. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss our upcoming tutorials. And if you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to leave a comment down below. Before we jump right into building the project, let's go ahead and describe it. So here we have a quotes application. It is placed in the center of the page with a nice and cool gradient background. This application consists of a couple of different parts. We have here a heading, quote. Then in the center of the application, you can see the quote itself with text and author. The text is wrapped with quote icons. Besides that, we have here circles with nice and cool gradient backgrounds. These circles are here just for design purposes. Below you can see two buttons, one for a new quote and the second one for adding the quote in the favorite section. If I click the new quote button, then a new quote will be fetched and displayed on the page from the API. We're going to use Quotable API throughout this project. If I click the second button and then go to the favorite section, by clicking this icon here, we will navigate to the favorite section where we have our edit quote. You can see here the text and author, and also we have here a delete button. If I click it, then the quote will be deleted. If I click the X closing button, then the favorite section will close. We can add as many quotes as we want in the favorite section. If I add a quote to favorites section and then click again the button, the quotes won't be added twice. It won't be duplicated. Besides that, if we add many quotes to the favorite section, let's generate new quotes and then add them to the favorite section. Then the scroll bar will appear and it will allow us to scroll up and down. Okay, so I think that's it about the functionality of our application. The project is responsive to different screen sizes and devices. If I inspect the page, switch to the responsive mode and check the project on various screen sizes and devices, you'll find that it is responsive and it looks pretty nice. Alright, so that's it about the project description. Let's go ahead and get started. I created a new folder on the desktop called Quotes App, which right now is empty. I'm going to open it in VS Code. So we need to create our React application, but before we do that, I want to make sure that you have Node.js installed on your computer. We need Node.js because we are going to use npm, Node Package Manager. If you don't have Node.js installed on your device, then you can search for Node.js, then download it and install. It is a very simple process, so I'm not going to go through it. Next, in order to create our React application, I'm going to use one of the tools called Vite. It is a build tool that lets you configure a development environment for different frameworks such as React, Vue, Svelte, and so on. So I'm going to search for Vite. Then I'm going to go to this website. So here we have the website about Vite. Next, I'm going to click Guide. So now you can find here the commands to create application. In this case, we have here Vue app by default, but the command for creating React application is similar. We need React instead of Vue. So I'm going to open terminal in our code editor. In order to open terminal, you can click Ctrl plus backtick. So the terminal is open. And also you can click View and then choose Terminal. It will open the terminal. Alright, so now I'm going to use the command that I showed you on Vite's website. So we need here npm, then create, then we need with @latest. Next we need the name of the application. I'm going to call it Quotes App. Then it should be followed by 2 dashes. Then again we need 2 dashes. Template, and finally we need React. So as you can see, a new folder is created here, quotes app, which includes some folders and files. We'll go through them in a minute. So the next thing that I'm going to do is to enter this folder. We need cd and the name of the folder, quotes app. And after that, I'm going to install Node modules. For that, we need npm install. It will take some time. So the Node modules are installed. If we check the folder, then you will find here Node modules, which includes tons of different modules, different folders. So I'm not going to go through them. Next, we need to open and run our project in the browser. For that, we need to run npm run dev. So here we have URL localhost 1573. In order to open it in the browser, we need to press Alt and then click this link. So as you can see, our application is up and running in the browser. Let's place the editor and the browser side by side like so. Next, I'm going to describe those files and folders. So we have here public folder, which includes some SVG icon. This is vid SVG, I mean this icon here. Next we have, actually let's close it. Next we have source folder, which includes assets folder and some files. In the assets folder we have React icon, I mean this icon here. And also we have here app.css, which includes some CSS styles. Next we have app.jsx file. Then we have index.css file. It includes some global styles. Then we have here main.jsx file. It is a main file which renders the application. And finally we have here index.html, which includes the root element. I'm going to delete some of the files and folders, and also I'm going to modify those files. First of all, I'm going to delete vid.svg file. Then I'm going to delete assets folder, I mean the entire folder. Then we don't need app.css. We will create different CSS file. Now in the app.jsx file, I'm going to delete the entire code. Next, let's open index.css file and delete the entire code here as well. As for the index.html file, I'm going to get rid of this icon. And also I'm going to change the title. It's going to be quotes up. Alright, let's close index.html file, then open app.jsx file. I'm going to create new component, and for that I'm going to use shortcut RAFCE. If you don't know about those shortcuts, then I recommend to install package called ES7 snippets. I mean this package here. You can install this package and then use some shortcuts. So RAFC is for creating the component. As you can see, we have here app component. Let's get rid of this import from here. We don't need it. Let's save it. Then I'm going to create new folder in the source folder, and it's going to be components. Then inside the components folder, I'm going to create file. Let's call it quotes app.jsx. We will write the entire code in this file. Next, I'm going to create here the CSS file. Let's call it quotes app.css. Alright, so now I'm going to create new component in the quotes app.jsx file. Let's use again shortcut RAFCE. Oops, we need here RAFCE. Then I'm going to get rid of this import statement. Let's save it, then go back to the app.jsx file. Now we need to import the component that we created in the quotes app.jsx file. For that we need here import quotes app from components, quotes app. Then instead of app, let's nest here the component. We need quotes app. So now once I save, then we will get here quotes app instead of app. Alright, I'm going to import the CSS file here as well. So we need import, then we need to specify the path of the file. we need components, and then we have to select quotesapp.css file. Okay, so that's it about the app.jsx file. We won't write here any code. All the code will go here in quotesapp.jsx file. Let's close app.jsx file. So now we're going to create the JSX, the HTML content. So JSX in React is like a mix of JavaScript and HTML. It lets you write HTML-like code within your JavaScript files, making it easier to create and manipulate user interfaces. Instead of separating the markup and logic, JSX allows you to combine them, which helps in building and maintaining React components efficiently. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our JSX. So I'm going to get rid of this text. Then I'm going to add a class name to the div element. So in React, we use class names and not classes like we have it in HTML. So if you write here just class, then you will get an error. So the class name is going to be container. Then inside the container, I'm going to open another div with the class name quotesapp. So the quotesapp element will include a couple of different elements. The first one is going to be h1 heading element, and I'm going to add to it class name app heading, and the text is going to be quote with dots. Next, after I element, I'm going to insert an icon. Throughout this project, we're going to use box icons. So I'm going to go ahead and search for box icons. Then in order to link the box icons to our project, I'm going to click usage. Then we need to import the CSS, and we have to grab this URL from here. Let's copy it. Then we need to open index.html file, and we have to paste this link here in the head element. So now the box icons is linked to our project. So the first icon that I'm going to insert here is going to be I element with the class names bx. Then we need bxs heart. And besides that, I'm going to add to this element an individual class name. For styling, I'm going to add to it fav icon, favorite icon. So if I save, then we will get here a heart. After that, I'm going to open another div element, and it's going to be quotes. Actually, we need here quote, not quotes. Inside the quote, we will have another icon. So we need I elements with the class names bx, bxs, quotes, alts. And I'm going to add here another class name. It's going to be left quote. So as you can see, the icon is not displayed. We need here bxs quote alt left. Now it should display, so here we have it. Next, I'm going to add here text of the quotes. It's going to be paragraph with the class name quote text. And the text is going to be ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. It is a quote of John Kennedy, the president of USA. Next, we need the author of the quote. So we need another paragraph with the class name quote author. And as I said, it's going to be John Kennedy. So it is a hard-coded quote. Then we will manage to get the quotes from the Quotable API. Right now, we just need here this hard-coded text and the author. So after that, we need again the quotes. So I'm going to grab this line of code. Let's paste it here and change the class name. We need here alt writes and also write quote. So here we have the second quote icon. All right, so after that, I'm going to create circles. Those circles, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 circles. So I'm going to open div elements with the class name circles. It's going to be a wrapper of the circles. And as I said, we need 4 circles. So let's open again div element with the class name circle1. Then I'm going to duplicate this code 3 times because we need 4 circles. And let's change the class names. We need circle2, then circle3, and circle4. So right now nothing is displayed here because the div elements are empty. After that, I'm going to create the buttons. So I'm going to open div element with the class name buttons. And inside that element, we will create 2 buttons. So I'm going to add to the button class name. It's going to be btn. It is a common class name. And then we need an individual class name, btn new. It's for new quotes. So we need to add here new quotes. Let's duplicate this line of code. The second button is going to be btn favorite. And at the text, I'm going to insert here, add to favorites. Alright, so as you can see, we have here both buttons. And actually with the JSX for now, we are done. Next, I'm going to customize those elements. So I'm going to write some CSS. If you don't want to write the CSS, then you can feel free and skip this part. You can download the source files and use the code from the source files. But I would recommend to write the code anyway, or at least watch the CSS part, because I'm going to use some nice and cool tricks and techniques in CSS. Alright, so I'm going to open index.css file and I'm going to insert here some common and global styles. So throughout this project, we're going to use a couple of different Google fonts. The first thing that I'm going to do is to link those Google fonts here in index.css file. I'm going to go ahead and search for Google Fonts. Let's go to the website. So I'm going to search for a couple of different fonts. The first one is going to be Brimhand. Let's go ahead and select this font. We need to click here, get fonts. Then I'm going to search for Bebas Neue. I don't know how to pronounce this word. Hopefully I pronounced it correctly. So we need this font. Let's click get font. And then the next one is going to be Dosis. Let's select this font. And finally, I'm going to search for Comforta. Let's click get font. Then we need get embed code. I'm going to click here import and grab this URL from here. And let's paste it here in index.css file. Alright, so all 4 Google fonts are linked to our project. Next, I'm going to select every element using an asterisk, and I'm going to get rid of default margin and padding. Let's set both of them to 0. Then we need box sizing. It's going to be border box. It means that the width and height of the element will include the padding and also the border. Next, we need font family. I'm going to set font to Dosis. It's going to be the default font. We need here sans serif. Alright, so as you can see, all the common styles are applied to the elements. I'm going to add here one more thing. I'm going to use rem as a measurement unit throughout this project. So right now, by default, 1 rem is equal to 16 pixels, and I want to convert 1 rem into 10 pixels. It is equal to 16 pixels because the font size of the HTML element is equal to 16 pixels. So if you want to convert 1 rem into 10 pixels, then you have to decrease the font size of the HTML element. So I'm going to set font size to 62.5%. In this case, 1 rem will be equal to 10 pixels. As you can see, all the elements became smaller because we decreased the font size of the HTML element. Alright, so I think that's it about the common styles. I'm going to close index.css file and open quotes up.css file. So let's start with the container. Let's select container. I'm going to set width to 100%. Then the height is going to be 100 viewport height. It means that the container will take up 100% of the height of the viewport. Then I'm going to change the background. Let's use background image. I'm going to use linear gradient. So the direction of the color transition is going to be to right. As for the colors, the first one is going to be FFAC 24. And then the second color is going to be FFD7 80. Okay, so we have here nice and cool background with gradient effect. After that, I'm going to place the content in the center of the page. For that, we can use a couple of different ways. In this case, I'm going to use CSS grid. So let's set display to grid. And then in order to place the content in the center, we need place items center. So the content is placed in the center of the page. Okay, let's go ahead and select Quotes App. First of all, I'm going to define the width, and I'm going to set it to 90 viewport minimum. So this unit represents a viewport minimum. It's a relative unit in CSS that expresses a value as a percentage of the smaller dimension of the viewport. So let me explain how it works. Imagine a rectangular viewport representing your browser window. The viewport has two dimensions, width and height. Whichever of these dimensions is smaller is considered the viewport's minimum dimension. If your browser window is wider than it is tall, I mean if you have landscape mode, the minimum dimension will be the viewport height. Conversely, if your window is taller than it is wide, I mean if you have portrait mode, the minimum dimension will be the viewport width. So the 90 viewport minimum value in our code instructs the element to take up 90% of this minimum viewport dimension. Okay, hopefully you understand how this unit works. Next, I'm going to use aspect ratio, and I'm going to set it to 3:2. So in CSS, the aspect ratio property is used to define the aspect ratio of an element. In our example, we are specifying the aspect ratio as 3:2. Here's what it means. The first value, 3, represents the width of the element. The second value, 2, represents the height of the element. So in this case, the element's width would be 3 times its height, resulting in a wider shape. Next, I'm going to change the background color. Let's use here color 212226. So here I have the background color of the application. Next, I'm going to make the application rounded using border radius. Let's set it to 3 rem. Also, we need padding. The space inside the element. So we need here padding 4 rem on all 4 sides. And finally, let's add here box shadow. So we need here -2 rem in order to create the shadow on the left side. Then we need 2 rem, then 6 rem. And as the color, I'm going to use RGBA value. We need here black color with the opacity 0.6. So as you can see, we have here nice and cool shadow effect. Alright, that's it about the Quotes App element. Next, I'm going to take care of the elements inside the Quotes App. I'm going to start with the quote, the heading. So let's go ahead and select App Heading. Let's go ahead and change the font family. I'm going to use here BBAS New E. And it's going to be sans serif. Then let's increase the font size. Let's set it to 5 rem. And finally, we need color to be DDD. So as you can see, the heading looks pretty nice. Next, I'm going to take care of the icon, fav icon. So let's go ahead and select this element. Let's set position to absolute. Then in order to position element according to the parent element, we need position relative for the Quotes App. Next, I'm going to define top and right properties. The top position is going to be 5 rem. As for the right position, I'm going to set it to 5 rem as well. So as you can see, the icon is positioned on the right side, at the top right corner of the Quotes App element. Next, we need font size. Let's set the font size to 4 rem. Then I'm going to add gradient effect to the background of our icon. So for that, we need to use following properties. The first one is going to be background image. Let's use linear gradient. The direction of the color transition is going to be to left. Then the first color is going to be 2E6F79. As for the second color, let's use 1B9B96. So right now, we have here the background, but that's not what we need. We need to change the background of the icon itself. So I'm going to add here 2 more properties. We need WebKit, background clip. It's going to be text. And then we need WebKit text field color. It's going to be transparent. Alright, so now everything looks good. We have here background with gradient effect. Okay, next I'm going to change the cursor, make it pointer. Also, I'm going to add a little shadow effect to the icon using text shadow. The values will be minus 0.3 RAM, then we need 0.5 RAM, 2 RAM, and the color will be RGBA 27155 and the opacity is going to be 0.3. Okay, so we have here nice and cool green shadow effect. Next I'm going to create click effect with this icon. So in order to do that, I'm going to use one of the pseudo classes called active. Let's add here active, and then I'm going to use transform, translate y with the value 0.1 RAM. Now if I click, we'll get this nice and cool clicking effect. That's it about the fab icon. Next I'm going to take care of the quotes, which will be placed in the center of the application. So let's go ahead and select quotes. First of all, I'm going to change the position. It's going to be absolute. Then I'm going to set top position to 50%. Then we need left position, it's going to be 50%. And in order to center the element perfectly, we need transform, translate, minus 50%, minus 50%. So this is another way to center the element perfectly using positions. After that, I'm going to take care of the alignment of the elements inside the quote. So I'm going to use Flexbox. We need display flex. Then I'm going to place the flex items, the elements inside the quote, vertically in a column. Therefore, we have to change the direction. It's going to be flex direction column. Now, the elements are placed vertically in a column. And I'm going to create some space between those flex items using row gap. It's going to be 1 RAM. So, as you can see, we have here space between the flex items. Okay, so that's it about the quote. It is a wrapper div element. Next, I'm going to customize the elements inside the quote. Let's go ahead and start with quote text. I'm going to change the font size. And now I'm going to use one of the functions called clamp. Let's add here the arguments, and then I'm going to explain what this function does. So the first value is going to be 1.6 RAM. Then the second one will be 2 CQI. And finally we need 2.5 RAM. Okay, so clamp function allows you to set a value that falls within a specified range. It takes 3 parameters separated by commas. The first parameter here, 1.6 RAM, specifies the minimum font size. If the viewport or parent element size is small, the font size will not shrink below this value. The second parameter, 2 CQI, is a preferred font size. Actually, this unit is a part of container query length units. If you hadn't heard of them until now, container queries are similar to media queries. However, instead of being based upon the size of the user's viewport, these styles can be changed according to the size of one of the element's parent containers. Now, in the same way that viewport height and viewport width are relative to the size of the viewport, container query units are relative to the size of their container. So CQI stands for container query inline, and by default it is 1% of the container's inline size. This second value is used when the viewport or parent element size falls within the range specified by the minimum and maximum functions. However, if the preferred size is greater than the maximum size specified by the third parameter, the font size will be limited to the maximum size. The third parameter, 2.5 RAM, specifies the maximum font size. If the viewport or parent element size is large, the font size will not grow beyond this value. So hopefully you understand what clamp function does and what this unit means. Next, I'm going to change the color of the text. It's going to be DDD. Then I'm going to increase the line height. Let's set it to 3 RAM. Next, I'm going to align text in the center. Also, let's increase the letter spacing, make it 0.1 rem. And finally, I'm going to define the width of the text. And again, I'm going to use clamp function. So, as you know, we need 3 values. The minimum value is going to be 25 rem. Then we will have preferred value. It's going to be 35 CQI. And then we need maximum value. I'm going to set it to 50 rem. Alright, so that's it about the quote text. Next, I'm going to take care of the quote author. So let's go ahead and select quote author. First of all, we need to define the font family. In this case, I'm going to use font called Brimhan. It is a cursive font. Then I'm going to change the font size. Let's set it to 1.4 rem. Also, let's define the color. I'm going to make it 888. And finally, we need text align. We have to align text on the right side, so the text align should be right. Alright, that's it about the author. Now we have to take care of the quotes. So let's go ahead and select quote I. I'm going to set the font size to 3 rem. As for the color, it's going to be DDD. And now I'm going to place the second quote on the right side. So let's go ahead and select the right quotes. And I'm going to use here text align right. So that's it about the quotes. Next, I'm going to take care of the buttons. We have 2 buttons. The first one is for new quote. As for the second one, it's for adding the quote to the favorite section. So first of all, let's select wrapper elements buttons. Let's set position to absolute. Then I'm going to define button position, and it's going to be 6 rem. Then we need left 50%. We need to center the element horizontally. So therefore we need here transform, translate X, and the value is going to be minus 50%. Then I'm going to use flexbox. Let's set display to flex and create gap between those 2 buttons. We need column gap. Actually, we need column gap, and the value is going to be 2 rem. Now we have to customize the buttons. So let's select both buttons with the common class name btn. Let's set width to 18 rem. Then the height is going to be 4 rem. Next we need border radius. I'm going to set it to 2 rem. Then I'm going to get rid of default border. Let's set it to none. Also, I'm going to change the font family. Let's use here Comforta sans serif. Then the font size is going to be 1.2 rem. Also, we need font weight to be bold. Then we need to make the text uppercase. Then I'm going to create some space between the letters using letter spacing with the value 0.1 rem. Also, we need the cursor to be pointer. Then I'm going to add shadows to the buttons and also to the text. So we need here box shadow. It's going to be 3 rem, then 1 rem, 4 rem, and RGBA black color with the opacity 0.3. Next, I'm going to add text shadow. Actually, let's duplicate this code, change box shadow into text shadow. So we need here minus 0.3 rem, 0.5 rem, and we need 1 rem, and the color black with opacity 0.3. So that's it about the common styles of the buttons. Next, I'm going to change the backgrounds for each button separately. So let's go ahead and select btn new. We need linear gradient. Actually, before that we need background image and then linear gradient. So the direction of the color transition is going to be to left. As for the colors, I'm going to add here the first color 553 DDD. Then the second color is going to be 7F69 E8. So as you can see, the background is changed. Actually, I'm going to change the color of the text. It's going to be white. Let's duplicate this code. Change the class name. We need here second button. It's btn fav. The first color of the gradient is going to be 2, E6, F79. As for the second color, I'm going to add here 1B, 9B, 96. Alright, so that's it. Both buttons look pretty nice. The last thing regarding buttons is that I'm going to create clicking effect. I mean this effect. So let's go ahead and select btn with active pseudo class. We need here active. Now I'm going to add here transform, translate y, and the value is going to be 0.2 rem. So as you can see, we have here nice and cool clicking effect. Alright, so that's it about the buttons. Next I'm going to take care of the circles. I'm going to select all the circles. So we need circles, followed by the development. I'm going to set position to absolute, and then I'm going to make all circles rounded. So we need border radius with the value 50%. In this case, all the circles will be rounded. Alright, so after that, I'm going to select the first circle. Let's select circle 1. I'm going to set width to clamp function, and we need here 3 values. The minimum value is going to be 5 rem. Then we need preferred value. I'm going to set it to 10 CQI, and then I'm going to use maximum value 16 rem. After that, I'm going to set aspect ratio to 1. It means that the width and height of the element will be equal. Next, I'm going to change the background. Let's use background image, followed by the linear gradient function. The direction of the color transition is going to be to top. Then the first color is going to be FFAC24. Then the second color is going to be FFD780. So we have here the first circle. I'm going to position it in a different place. Let's set the position to -6 CQI. And then we need left position to be 50%. So as you can see, the first circle is placed correctly, but we need to hide the outer part. And for that, I'm going to add overflow hidden to the quotes app. So now the outer part is hidden. Let's go ahead and take care of the second circle. Actually, I'm going to duplicate this code. Let's change the class name. We need here circle 2. Then I'm going to change the values of the clamp function. So we need here 2 rem, then 4 CQI. As for the maximum value, it's going to be 6 rem. Next we need, actually, I'm going to grab aspect ratio and add it to the common styles, and then let's get rid of it from here as well. So for the second circle, we need the same linear gradient with the same colors. Now we have to change the top position to bottom, and the value is going to be 15 rem. As for the left position, I'm going to set it to 7 rem. So here we have the second circle. Let's go ahead and duplicate this code. Change the class name. We need here circle 3. So the values of the clamp function will be 5 rem. Then I'm going to set the second value, I mean the preferred value, to 10 CQI. As for the third value, it's going to be 16 rem. Let's change the colors of the linear gradient function, and also I'm going to change the direction. It's going to be to right. The first color will be 553, and then D. As for the second color, I'm going to set it to 7F69 E8. As for the positions, we need here top position. It's going to be 50%. As for the second position, it's going to be right. And I'm going to set it to -5 CQI. So here we have the third circle. Let's go ahead and duplicate this code. Let's change the class name. We need here circle 4. Then we need to change the values of the clamp function. So we need here 1 rem, then 1 CQI. As for the maximum value, I'm going to set it to 2 rem. Then I'm going to change the linear gradient. So we need here the direction to be to left. The first color is going to be DD133F. As for the second color, I'm going to set it to FD4069. Then we need top position to be 30%. As for the second position, I'm going to get rid of it. Alright, so that's it about the fourth circle, and actually with the circles and with the styling we are done for now. So now it's time to make our application work. Right now we have here a hard-coded quote text and hard-coded quote author. So we have to make it dynamic and we have to fetch the data from the Quotable API. Before that, I'm going to make here slight change. So instead of having here this text and author, I'm going to create state and then put this text and author as the default values in the state. So state in React is like a container that holds information about a component. It is data that can change over time and can influence what the component renders on the screen. You can think of it as variables that React components can keep track of and update when needed. So if you have some basic knowledge in React, then you will be already familiar with state. So I'm going to create here const, then we need square brackets, and I'm going to insert here quote, and then set quote. It should be equal to useState. It is a React hook, and as I said, I'm going to insert here an object with two properties. The first one is going to be text. As the text, I'm going to insert here this text. I mean the quote text. And then we need author. And I'm going to insert here the value of this second paragraph. Besides that, we need to import useState hook from React. And now we can insert here, instead of this text, just quotes dot text, and here we can insert quotes dot author. So as you can see, we have here the same result. Actually, I'm going to inspect the page and switch to the console tab. We will see here if we have any errors. So again, useState is a hook provided by React that allows functional components to manage state. It returns an array with two elements, the current state value and a function to update that value. So here the returned array from useState is being destructured into two variables, quote and setQuote. Quote represents the current state value, which is initially set to an object with two properties, text and author. As for the setQuote function, it is a function used to update the state value. So again, we have initialized the state, where the initial state value for quote is set to an object with two properties, and it means that the data will initially hold this object. It can be updated later using setQuote function. Now it's time to talk about the Quotable API. I'm going to go ahead and search for Quotable API. Let's go to this link. So here we have the Quotable API, which allows us to fetch a random quote and display it on the screen. So here we have the basic code sample that allows us to fetch a quote and display the content and also the author name. So I'm going to create a new function here, and I'm going to call it fetch new quote. It should be equal to an arrow function. Then inside the function, I'm going to create a variable called URL, and I'm going to grab this URL from here. Let's paste it here. Now, in order to demonstrate how we can get the response from that API call using this URL, I'm going to use one of the VS Code packages called Thunder Client. You can install this package. So I'm going to click New Request. Then I'm going to copy this URL. Let's insert it here. Then click Send. And here we go. So here we have a response in JSON format. We have here a couple of different properties with the values. So we need content, which includes the quote text, and also we need here an author property with the proper value. All right, so we're going to use this API. I'm going to create new variable. It's going to be response. Now we have to use the fetch function to make a GET request to the API endpoint specified by the URL. So we need fetch function. And I'm going to insert here URL. It should wait for the response using the await keyword. So we need here await. And then I'm going to add here keyword called async. So the async keyword before a function declaration indicates that the function will operate asynchronously. This means that it can pause execution to wait for an asynchronous operation to complete without blocking the execution of other code. Now we have to convert the response into JSON format. Therefore, I'm going to create another variable, and it's going to be data. It should be equal to response.json. And again, we have to wait for the response. Therefore, we need here a wait keyword. All right, so once we have the response from the API call, next we have to update the state. So we need to use setQuote function. Let's set quote to an object in which we will have text equal to data.content. As you remember, the content property includes the text of the quote, and we need here author. It's going to be data.author. All right, so now we have to run this function once we click the new quote button. Actually, let's close this tab, we don't need it. So once we click new quote, then new quote will be generated and displayed here. So I'm going to find new quote button. Here we have it. Let's add here onClick event handler, and then I'm going to pass here fetch new quote function. Okay, so now if I click, then we'll get here new quotes. Everything works perfectly. Okay, so now we have to take care of the favorites part. So the first thing that I'm going to do is to create the JSX for the favorite section. I mean, we have to create this section. So let's go ahead and add here in the quotes app new development with the class name. It's going to be actually not class name, but we need here the actual name of the class, favorites. Next, I'm going to insert here button with the class name btn close. This will be the X closing button. And here I'm going to insert an icon. So we need I-element with the class names bx, then bxx. So here we have the X closing button. After the button, I'm going to open div elements with the class name favquotes, I mean favorite quotes, in which we'll have delete button for the quotes, I mean this button here. So let's open div elements with the class name favquote delete, and I'm going to insert here again icon. It's going to be bx, bxx, and circle. Alright, so here we have the second button. After that, I'm going to open another div element, and it's going to be favquotes content, in which we need favquote text. And for now, I'm going to grab this text. Let's add it here. And also we need favquote author. I'm going to duplicate this code. Let's change the class name. We need here author. And as the author, let's use again John Kennedy. Alright, so that's it about the JSX. Now I'm going to style those elements. Let's open quotes app.css file and add some CSS. Let's go ahead and select favorites, the wrapper development. Let's set width and height, both of them with 100%. Then I'm going to set position to absolute, and I'm going to use one of the CSS properties called inset. It's going to be 0. So when you use inset property, it means that you set all 4 position properties, I mean top, left, bottom, right positions to 0. Next I'm going to set background image with linear gradient function, and the direction is going to be to left. Then the first color will be 1B, 9B, 96. As for the second color, I'm going to use 2E6, F79. Alright, so here we have the gradient background for the favorite section. I'm going to create some space inside the section using padding. It's going to be 3 rem at the top side, 7 rem on the right side, 3 rem at the bottom side, and 3 rem on the left side. Okay, that's it about the wrapper development. Next I'm going to take care of the favorite quotes. Let's use flexbox. We need display flags. Then I'm going to create some space between the columns using column gap with the value 1 rem. And now we need margin at the bottom equal to 2 rem. That's it about the favorite quote. Next I'm going to select btn close. Let's set position to absolute. We need to position this element at the top right corner of the element. So we need here top position is going to be 3 rem. As for the right position, I'm going to set it to 2 rem. Next I'm going to set background color to transparent. Also we need border to be none. And finally change the cursor type, make it pointer. Alright, so after that I'm going to customize the icon. So we need to select btn close followed by the I element. Let's set font size to 3 rem. As for the color, it's going to be white. Okay, so that's it about the X closing button. Next we have to take care of this button here. So I'm going to go ahead and select fav quote delete. Let's set font size to 2.5 rem. Then we need color. It's going to be F06B5F. Next we need cursor to be pointer. As you can see, the delete button looks pretty nice. Next we have to take care of the text and also the other. So let's go ahead and select fav quote text. Let's set font size to 1.6 rem. Then the color is going to be FFF, I mean the white color. And now we have to customize the author. So let's go ahead and select fav quote author. Let's change the font family. I'm going to use font called Prim Hand. It's going to be cursive. Then we need text align right. It should be placed on the right side. And finally, I'm going to change the color. Let's set it to DDD. Alright, so that's it about the quotes in the favorite section. And now we have to go back to the quotes app.jsx file and continue making our application work. So now we have to manage opening and closing the favorite section. So once we click this icon here, then the favorite section should open. And once we click the X closing button, it should close. So for that, I'm going to create new state. I'm going to insert here show favorites, and then we need function set show favorites. It should be equal to useState, and the default value is going to be false. So this line initializes a state variable show favorites using the useState hook. The initial value of show favorites is false, indicating that the favorite section should be hidden by default when the component renders. Set show favorites is a function to update the state of show favorites. So now we have to create a function that will be responsible for toggling the state of show favorites. When this function is called, we should update the show favorites state to its opposite value. I mean, if show favorites is true, then it becomes false and vice versa. So I'm going to create here a new function. Let's call it toggle favorites. It should be equal to an arrow function. So now we have to update show favorites variable using set show favorites function, and I'm going to insert here not show favorites. So again, we should update the show favorite state to its opposite value. I mean, if show favorites is true, then it should become false and vice versa. Now we have to add event handlers to both buttons. I mean, this icon here and then this closing button here. So let's go ahead and find them. We need favorite icon. So we need here onClick event handler. And the function is going to be toggle favorites. And we need the same, actually, we need to use here camel case. Let's change this letter here as well. Next, we need the same thing with the X closing button. So here we have it. Let's add here onClick event handler. And I'm going to add here toggle favorites. Okay, so the next thing that I have to do is to use a conditional rendering technique in JSX. So here I'm going to open curly braces and I'm going to check if show favorites is true or false. If this variable is true, then we have to render the favorite section. So I'm going to insert here this entire code. Actually, we have here an error. Show favorites is not defined. Let's go ahead and check the state. So yes, we need here camel case. The same mistake. Show favorites. We need the camel case here as well. Show favorites. And now the code should work. Now, if we click this icon here, then we will go to the favorite section, and if I click the X closing button, we'll go back to the application. Okay, so everything works perfectly. So again, I'm going to explain this part here. If show favorites is true, then the content inside the parentheses is evaluated and rendered. And if it is false, then the content inside the parentheses won't be rendered. Now we have to add the quotes to the favorite section. So I'm going to create another state. Let's add it here. We need here favorites. Then set favorites. And it should be equal to useStateHook. And I'm going to pass here an empty array. So this line initializes a state variable favorites using the useStateHook. The initial value of favorites is an empty array, indicating that initially there are no quotes added to the favorites list. The state variable will be updated whenever a new quote is added to the favorites list. Next, we need to create the function that will be responsible for adding the current quote to the favorites list. So I'm going to add here a new function and I'm going to call it add to favorites. It should be equal to an arrow function. And now I'm going to update favorites using setFavorites function. So now we need to update the favorites variable, and we need to use the spread operator to create a new array that includes all the elements of the current favorites array and then appends the quote object to it. So we need here, as I said, spread operator followed by favorites. And we need to add here quote. So again, we use the spread operator to create a new array that includes all the elements of the current favorites array, and then we add here quote object. So once the function is ready, now we need to use a JSX expression that maps over the favorites array and renders a JSX element for each quote in the favorites list. So we need to find favorite quotes, and here I'm going to open curly braces. As I said, we need to use map function. Let's insert here a callback function with two parameters. The first one is going to be favorite quote. As for the second parameter, it's going to be an index. So the map function iterates over each element in the favorites array and returns a new array of JSX elements. So now inside here, I'm going to insert favorite quote. And now we have to add here key attribute with the value index. So for each quote in the favorites list, it creates a div element, the favorite quote, which has a unique key attribute set to the index. It helps React efficiently identify which items have changed, added, or removed. That's why we use here key attribute with the value index. Alright, so the next thing that we have to do is to add onClick event handler to the add to favorites button. So we need here onClick event handler. When we click this button, we have to run this function, add to favorites. And also we have to change this hard-coded data with the dynamic data. Let's get rid of this text from here. We need to add here favorite quote dot text, and instead of this text here, we need favorite quote dot other. Alright, so I think everything's ready, and now we can add the quote to the favorites. Let's click this button, then go to favorite section, and here we go. We have here the quote added in the favorite section. Okay, so everything works perfectly. Now we have to manage deleting the quote from here by clicking this little icon here. So in order to do that, I'm going to find the delete button. We need this I element here. So we need to add here onClick event handler, which will include a callback function. And inside the callback function, we have to create a new array, updated favorites, by filtering the elements of the favorites array. So we need to create a new variable called updated favorites. It should be equal to favorites dot filter. The filter method iterates through each element of the favorites array. I'm going to pass here a callback function with two parameters, item and then index I. So now I'm going to insert here I not equals to index. So this function checks if the current index I is not equal to the index passed to the onClick event handler. If the index of the current item is not equal to the index of the item being clicked, the item to be removed, then it should be included in the updated favorites array. Now after that, we have to update favorites using setFavorites function, and we have to pass here updated favorites. Okay, so now let's generate new quotes, click add to favorites, click here, and here we go. We have here favorite quotes added to the favorites section. Let's reload the page, generate new quotes, click add to favorites, and yes, everything works perfectly. The next thing that I'm going to do is to prevent adding the same quote over and over again in the favorite section. If I click add to favorites for a couple of times and then check the favorite section, you'll find that the same quote is added multiple times to the favorite section. We have to prevent this action. So in order to do that, I'm going to modify the add to favorites function. I'm going to create here a new variable, and it's going to be is already in favorites. It should be equal to an arrow function. Now we have to check if the current quote is already in the favorites array. For that, I'm going to use a method called sum. The sum method iterates over each element of the array and returns true if at least one element satisfies the condition specified in the callback function. So I'm going to add here a callback function with the parameter fav. Now we need the condition that checks if both the text and author properties of the current favorite quote match the text and author properties of the quote being added. So we need here fav.text equal to quote.text and fav.author equal to quote.author. Now we need to create an if statement which will check if the current quote is not already in the favorites array. So we need here if statement, and the condition is going to be not is already in favorites. Actually, I'm going to add here camel case. So if this condition is true, then we need to put this line of code here. So again, if is already in favorites is false, I mean if the current quote is not already in the favorites array, the code inside the if block will be executed. So if the quote is not in the favorites array, then it will be added to favorites. Now let's reload the page and generate new quotes. Add to favorites. So we have here the favorite quote. Now if I click again this button, the quote won't be added multiple times. Alright, so that's it. I think the application works perfectly, and the only thing that we have to do is to make our project responsive to different screen sizes. Let's switch to the responsive mode. I'm going to set responsive to 1920 pixels of width and 1080 pixels of height because the project is created for extra large screen size. Now I'm going to check the project for different screen sizes. Actually, I have prepared here different commonly used screen sizes. I have 6 desktop screen sizes. Let's go ahead and check for all 6 desktop screens. So as you can see, the project looks good for desktop screen sizes. Next I have here tablet. So for tablet, I'm going to change the shape of the application. Let's go ahead and open quotes app.css file and create new CSS media query. We need to specify max width, which is going to be 850 pixels. So on the breakpoint, I'm going to select quotes up and I'm going to set width to, actually we need here width. It's going to be 75 viewport minimum. And also I'm going to change the aspect ratio to change the shape of the application. So right now the aspect ratio is set to 3:2, and now on that breakpoint I'm going to set aspect ratio to 2:3. So as you can see, the shape is changed of the application and it looks pretty nice. So I think for tablets the application looks pretty nice. Next we have mobile screen sizes, and as you can see we have to make some changes. So I'm going to go to the index.css file. We have here the font size of the HTML set to 62.5%. Now I'm going to create new CSS media query because I'm going to change the font size of the HTML. That's why I write this code here in index.css file. So we need here max width to be, let's say, 550 pixels. Let's set font size of the HTML element to 50%. Actually, we need here font size 50%. So now we have better result. I'm going to close this file. We no longer need it. Next, I'm going to duplicate this code and change the max width. It's going to be 550 pixels. So we need here aspect ratio to be 1:2. Let's check other screen sizes. As you can see, we have to take care of the buttons. So I'm going to select buttons. For mobile screen sizes, I'm going to position buttons vertically in a column. So we need to change flex direction. It's going to be column. And also we need to change row gap. Let's set it to 2 rem. Okay, so our project is responsive to all different screen sizes and devices. Before we finish this tutorial, I almost forgot to add one more thing to our project. So let's get rid of responsive mode. If I add many quotes to the favorite section, let's add a couple of quotes, then we won't be able to scroll down and look at all the quotes that we added here in the favorite section. So if we add many quotes, then we should create the scroll bar in order to scroll up and down in the favorite section. So in order to do that, I'm going to add overflow Y to the favorite section. And the value is going to be auto. Now, as you can see, we have here a scroll bar, but this is a default one and it looks pretty ugly. So I'm going to customize the scroll bar. Let's go ahead and select favorites, followed by WebKit, scroll bar. I'm going to set width to 0.8 rem. Next, I'm going to duplicate this code and add here scroll bar track. And I'm going to change the background. Let's set background to F1, F1, F1. So as you can see, we have here scroll bar track. After that, we need to customize scroll bar thumb. So let's duplicate once again this code. Instead of track, let's insert here thumb. We need background to be 888. And also I'm going to add here border radius. It's going to be 0.4 rem. So we have here thumb. And finally, we need to create a little hover effect once we hover over the scroll bar. So I'm going to duplicate this code. Let's add here hover. On hover, I'm going to change the background. So instead of 888, I'm going to add here 555. Now if I hover over the scroll bar thumb, it will change its background color. Okay, so everything looks pretty nice. And finally, we are done with our project. Hopefully it was interesting and you learned some new stuff. If you enjoyed this project, then please thumbs up, comment below, subscribe to our channel and click the notification bell so you never miss out our upcoming tutorials. See you next time.